get you all propped up here. Now I don't have to do all my typing on the phone.
Ha!
There you are.
Hey!
Gotta love technology. It's super easy, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. That was fun to navigate. It is also raining on me, so we're all having fun in the weather, which, I mean, our plants love it, so.
Yeah. We needed the rain. It means I don't have to spend, like you're saying, another hour or so having to water everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
But yeah, glad we were finally able to do this. Hopefully the rain doesn't get too bad, because this canopy is going to get pretty loud if it does. But
Okay.
I'll try to. If you have a hard time hearing me through anything, just let me know and I'll try to speak up a little bit. So.
Okay. Well,
But,
I've gotten a break in the rain, so I'm the lucky one here.
well, yeah, we're starting to get some people in here. It's a little past 7, so we can get started. I try to tell everyone I'm not gonna take everyone's night. We're gonna maybe if it goes over into like 45 minutes to an hour, then so be it. But at any point tonight, and I'm giving Carly full reins on this, everyone in the chat, if there's a question asked about houseplant, Carly, by any means, just hop right in, or a question in general, hop right in and answer it.
Okay.
Yeah, tonight, this is Terra Talk number 4. We are talking about houseplants with Carly from Sage and Roots. I'd like to welcome you on to Terra Talk.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Now that I've worked out the technology.
Yeah, it makes it never makes it easy, especially with the hills and hollers. It's we get told, and there's an inside joke with all of these that we do, because I might lose service. We have terrible reception when there's leaves on the trees, apparently. So that's our issue, even though we can see a tower from where I'm currently sitting.
Yeah.
So too many leaves.
Like user error. And what's funny about that, wasn't that long ago, I remember like being the person who could do the technology and hearing people older than me say that they can't navigate it, and now I'm that. Yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah, we're turning into the things that we used to make fun of. But so for everyone out there who doesn't know Carly, Carly owns and operates a business out of it's over by Ashland, isn't it? Ashland, Kentucky.
Yeah. So we are in process of restoring the old switch tower for the Russel train station. So right now, like our home base is out of Aridnis Brewing. So Aridnis is a tea and tap house, but it's out of the old Russel train station, which, fun fact, the Russel train station once oversaw the largest CSX yard in the whole nation.
Nice.
And that was here in Russell. But yes, right beside Ashland. So we operate out of the brewery for now, but trains used to be controlled by switchboards. And so there's a tower next to the actual station. And I am restoring that with, her name is Kristen Matthews. She owns Appalachian Folkology, and we collaborate a lot, but we are restoring that together to turn it into a plant and tea shop.
Nice. That really sounds awesome. And so what is so the business name is Sage and Roots. So that's kind of a unique name for like a plant shop, because
yes.
Like how were you able to like come up with like such a name like that? Like what was your inspiration behind that?
So I wanted to pull from something that was very authentically me. I actually did this as a hobby 3 or 4 years ago, and it was kind of a really forced thing. Like I was trying to think of concepts that would be popular over what would be authentic. So Sage and Root was very personal to me because, different forms of herbs like cedar, juniper are things that I use. Desert sage, eucalyptus, like these are things that like I used to, and I still do, burn in my home, which sage, a lot of people don't realize, is actually like an antimicrobial, and I have a son with very severe asthma. So I was kind of at this point where I was trying anything and everything to help that. He actually went into respiratory distress, and it was very scary because they had to bring in like the intubator, and So sage was kind of the last thing that I turned to. And whether it be that or a combination of many things, but he started to improve. And I'm sure it wasn't all due to sage, but it was a very connective thing at the time, and still is. Like I am unsuccessful in growing herbs myself. I rely heavily on Kristen for that part. But I'll wrap them, and I make these bundles, and he gets a kick out of burning them now, and I'll still, clean our air and stuff like that with it. But I wanted sage to be incorporated in somehow. And then root, because the plants, and as I kind of learned through hobbies and stuff, I've learned a lot of, as we all do, kind of the science behind all of them and the different types of root systems and stuff. And Kristen and I actually were guest speakers, and we went in and taught a weekly class at Wortland Middle School in the agricultural classes, and we got to explain those different root systems and rhizome plants and things like that. So I felt like root was really good representation of kind of the education I've gained and the process of it, and also wanting to keep rooted, true, authentic to what I wanted it.
Right.
It's not a forced to be a trend thing. It's this is the business. This is kind of what it represents. This is me. They're not buying or coming to see some kind of trendy new, we have these things for this month thing. It's, hey, I'm Carly. I am in oversized clothes today and covered in a little bit of mud, and I'm going to do lots of finger guns, as I've already pre-warned Nate, and this is just me. And my business to be that too. Like, hey, this is just it. So sage and root was kind of that. It's not something people at first glance are going to be like, that's a houseplant shop, but it didn't really need to be. It would turn into its own brand, and people would later recognize that, but it needed to be authentic to me.
Right. Yeah. And that's and as you look through like everything since like 2020, like that's when houseplants like blew up. There was businesses coming out of everywhere, and like it was just a train ride. People were getting on, and they were getting on, and like you could always tell like the people who were truly passionate and truly, like you said, authentic about everything. And then some of the other people who were just like, oh, I can do this, hop on, ride it for a little bit, hop off in Las Vegas and cash out. There's a lot to be said about like a lot of the plants that like we have here in the greenhouse, like you're saying, they mean something to someone. So like to have that authentic feel of saying like, hey, it feels good that this was actually someone's plant that they remember and stuff like that. So yeah, that's fantastic. You gotta always stay true to yourself, because at the end of the day, like your customers and your clients, they'll always see that.
Yeah.
And you attract the same birds. Birds of a feather flock together. So.
And that's been a really exciting and thing I didn't quite expect is you really do. I think that people really do see and appreciate that authenticity, and I get a lot of people back, and a lot of people who actually remembered this as a hobby thing, they see that and they come back and they appreciate that, and they kind of show me that version of them too, like you said, same-minded people. I'll have customers that come back that I met a year ago, and their daughter might have been going off to college, and I remember that, and we talk about it, and person to person, they see that. Yeah, you get those people back. Yeah,
that's we've formed like relationships and now like really good friendships with people that some people we don't even see anymore, that we've seen maybe once or twice at a reptile show, but they still message us, and now we're like we're not like we don't go over to like their child's birthday party, but like we send the Merry Christmas, we send the Happy Holidays. So it's those relationships you build around plants that you don't realize bring people together, but end up bringing people together. So it's a fantastic feeling. But but with that being said, relationships are fantastic and all, but you know the horticulture is not always the easiest thing to get in. It's always like a lot. It's not always just like collecting butterflies off of flowers and like brushing some aphids off the leaves once in a while. So like, what really made you decide like, hey, this is something that I want to get into and like, you know, move forward as like a career in this?
So honestly, failing. Like that was kind of the decision maker when I was doing this as a hobby. And it kind of goes into that same talk about, you know, trends. People, you know, when houseplants kind of blew up and everyone started collecting and getting plants, and then they were like, oh, I could propagate. Oh, I can make this a business. And it's not quite that easy. And a few years ago, I went in with the mentality, it would be, I could propagate this so I could have a business. And that didn't take off. Like I had customers that came back, which is amazing, but it never became like a profitable business. And it's because I went in it thinking that propagating a plant and sticking it in soil and giving that to someone was the end of it. Yep. So after that, I took about a 1.5 year break, and maybe right around a year, and I really kind of thought about it. And we had kind of a big life change happen. And it was one of those moments where you kind of got to really reflect on what's important and what you want. And I was like, I'm gonna invest in the education in this. This is what I want, but I didn't put that investment into the plants. I just kind of ran with it.
Yeah.
So which people, again, like you don't think that at first glance. You know, a lot of hobby sellers don't think about all the in-depth things. So I really started with research, and kind of just took it off from there. But it didn't end at propagating. Like, yes, I learned about different methods, but an issue I had never faced was pest. You know, what am I going to do with that? What am I going to do if a customer comes and asks me one day? Like, you know, things like that. I didn't learn about soil. Like, putting it in Miracle-Gro potting soil is not what's best for your plants.
Right.
And the difference in what that would be, you know, cacti versus, you know, aeroids and you know, all these different plants, kind of experimenting and learning those mediums, but also talking to different people and kind of not just introducing, but like listening to and reaching out and asking for guidance from people who have been in this community and other communities long term, and asking them about the education and this and things like that. And one person who was actually really supportive, which if you all watching know him would expect nothing less, but Kenny Imel of Imel's Greenhouse. Yep. I kind of talked to him in the beginning, and you know, I had kind of an anxious introduction, because a few years ago when I was a hobby seller, I had another business owner that was really intense and confrontational. But I went into Kenny and kind of introduced myself, and not only was he really supportive, I went back a few months ago and he's like, what is your long-term plan? You know, how are you going to do this? What about this? What about this? And you know, at first glance, someone might think, oh, well, why are, you know, they asking those questions? Are they trying to shut it down? But it's not. It's that guidance. It's that leadership. Right. So everything from, I think, pest to asking the real deals who've done it for so many years was kind of part of that process. Like, it wasn't quite as simple as I'm going to read books on you know, this and get invested into just the textbook part of horticulture. It was, how can I talk to these people? What can I learn hands-on? What can I fail at? And so failure was kind of the way I got sure I was serious about this path.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And if anyone growing houseplants knows, and I'm sure the viewers feel the same way, unfortunately, there is a lot of failure when it comes to houseplants. Like you were saying, like you kind of hit two spectrums. You hit like succulents and you hit like aeroids, and like the growing mediums and the care and the conditions and everything that both of those plants, both of those genres of plants require is just so vastly different. And you see a lot of people and like you start talking to them and they're like, yeah, I have my like mother of millions growing next to my like philodendron, and I'm just like, there's a reason one of those is suffering, and I can kind of give you an idea as to why. You know, and there's just so many niches within the plant community that I mean it's endless. You know, there's small little like micro communities out there that you know you never would think were there until you start to kind of like exploring into all the options.
And that's
And unfortunately killing a few of them as you go through. So
of plants. And yeah, things like that, you know, when I first jumped in a few years ago, I wasn't thinking about, you know, the humidity levels that would be needed, and like I said, in soil mediums and any of those things. And it's kind of not just the education, but you have to have experience, and experience takes time. And it's taken a few years just to get to this point. And education is continual with any career path. And we're always learning new information. And especially when you start to connect with other people in the community, like the plant community, you learn more about these different things, and they might share information and you might share information, and it's just being open to that constant education.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean there's a lot to it that goes into it. You know, and I think a lot of the introductions that people get is usually through you know, landscaping plants, or they always get some sort of an arrangement tropical, you know, whether it be like a Dieffenbachia or something along those lines that they get in a basket of some sort. We actually have a few in the greenhouse that we've gotten from along the lines.
The plastic basket.
Exactly. Yep. And like that's usually their first introduction to it, and after that, you know, people always kind of flock to what they're interested in, and maybe they want to try this and that, and you know, there's a lot that goes into it for sure. So you know, it's trying to keep people from not getting discouraged, because there's just so much information that, you know, I say it all.
That failure comes too, like that
Exactly.
plastic, buy those big arrangements or those little gift baskets and give it to someone. And they're almost always lined with that gaudy plastic, and they don't have proper drainage. So then you start to fail that, and then you ask for someone experienced and they teach you. And then you get that next step. Okay, well, I love this, and now I know about drainage. And then that moves on. And it's just people, I have had some customers come up and they're very discouraged. And it's just that openness to more education and not giving up. And then also accepting that failure doesn't mean you're not a success. That's just another turn. And the most common way that people get discouraged with my client base is they kill succulents, and they don't realize how complicated succulents can be.
Yep. Yeah, I have. So in the greenhouse here, I have an example. 4 years ago, I took a bunch of succulent pullings. I threw it in an old Chinese food dish, and I just threw some peat, 50-50 peat perlite mixed together, and I left it up on top of a beam. And it has not moved in 4 years. And it's the best looking succulents you could ever have. And people are like, oh, what do you do to these? I'm like, I do absolutely nothing to them. They might get water maybe 3 or 4 times a year. Like those are these plants come from Africa. They come from the Middle East, where it's like super dry 95% of the year. Like there's a reason they have that water storing capability. Like you can't be as heavy handed with it. And that's at least with our client, like customers, we 9 times out of 10 it's like, oh, I had a succulent but I killed it. Are you heavy handed with watering? I sure am. Well, you know, here's a pond plant, grow this instead, and you do fantastic.
Here's what tolerance is supposed to mean.
Exactly. So like there's obviously a lot of failure, and and it's not bad failure. I always say it's like educational failure in the horticulture community, because there's just so much information. There's like everyone has their own techniques. Like you mentioned Kenny, like I've talked with Kenny, like he just a massive vast of knowledge. Like I've talked to other horticulturists that have like a completely different idea on how to grow like the same exact plants, but they both do an amazing job producing a product.
Mm-hmm.
But in your own experience, like what was one thing that you wish you would have known before starting all of this, like that one key idea or tip that you're like, yeah, I wish I really knew that so it didn't do like this moving forward?
Honestly, and this is a saying we've all heard, but it's hard to slow down and think about, but that quality is more important than quantity, that I don't need to mass produce something. I need to take the time and make sure that this plant has been not just grown properly, but before I put that product out there, that I know that it is in the best possible condition it could be in, and that it's easy to transition to whatever climate they thought they were going to put it in versus what I recommend, and that it's quality over. I brought 12, of this specific type of plant to market versus I brought 5, but they're the best 5 you'll find.
Yep.
Like quality over quantity.
And that's like that's one thing we try to do here. Like our conditions are, I'm sure, very similar since we're not very far away from each other. During the summer is honestly the best time that I could, in my opinion, that I would want to sell to someone, because my greenhouse is wide open. I don't have any environmental controls going on. The plants are acclimated to outdoor conditions. So like the first thing I tell people is, if you can, keep it outdoors. Yeah. To get rid of that acclimation shock, because that's one thing that we see a lot is like, and we have notices now, like, hey, you're buying this plant, like you have to give it time to acclimate before you repot it and change it. Like, I know that pot's ugly, it doesn't match with like the rest of your scheme that you have going on, but like you have to allow that plant to acclimate. The best thing I always tell people is like, it's like a goldfish. You have to add a little bit of that tank water to the goldfish and let it warm up to that temperature before you introduce it into that water. And like you see the wheels kind of turn, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, maybe that's why, this plant that I bought from a terrarium grower, and that's a whole different venture amongst itself, is growing to 90% plus humidity, mm-hmm. and then trying to transfer something into 50% humidity. Mm-hmm. But like you see the heartbreaks, and it's frustrating, but like it's kind of, I don't want to say it's like an instant result society, but like we see all these photos on Instagram and like social media in general, where everyone has these big, beautiful plants, and we all want that too, because we're growers and we love these plants. But I wish that photo had like a timeline of how long it took to actually get to here. Right. Exactly. So yeah, that's it's always a hard thing, but at the end of the day, patience is the virtue, really. So
yes, absolutely, on our part and the customers, like, yes.
Yeah. So like I was kind of just briefly mentioning about like the greenhouse that we have here and like our climate control stuff. Like what are like your preferred methods on like how you grow, or like how do you prefer to grow? Or
so right now that's actually kind of transitioning, which is made for, a patient process. So during the summer months, I don't have the property space for a large greenhouse, so I had a couple small ones just on the land that I did have. And then I had an extra bedroom that I cleared out and did some indoor greenhouses that I could use whatever could fit in that environment. But right now, where we're under construction for the switch tower, the bottom part of it, which is our workshop, has been completed. And so I've moved a lot of shelving in a couple of those mini greenhouses inside. And what I didn't know until I got in there is I put up, first thing, my humidity gauge, what temperature, what's the humidity at? And that property, for whatever reason, I'm not versed in how that was constructed. It has maintained around 70% humidity. So there was a lot of plants that I could bring in there.
Right.
So I've been transitioning them in there, but that takes an acclimation process because, again, quality. I don't want to have this plant that I put in the RU. So the name of the switch tower is RU Cabin. It's along the side. So RU is its name. But I don't want to, sell this plant that I took from an outdoor greenhouse, put into RU a week ago, and then give it to a person, because that plant's getting shocked. So in the past, it's been outdoors in our greenhouses during the summer. And in the winter, I don't sell many plants. What I do sell is, the ones that can handle that indoor room, environment.
Right.
So a lot of ZZ plants. So right now everything's kind of transitioning, and I'm still, because education is ever evolving, I'm still kind of seeing how that's going to fit and what plants love that, because there's also windows that line that. So we've got bright indirect light, we've got humidity that a lot of them are going to love, but that's a brand new thing. So yep. I don't know, hey, this is going to be my favorite environment and I could do it year round, or if this is only going to work for these 12 species and the rest I do how they work.
Yeah, and it's, like you're talking about moving into a new building, like that's, to me, that, like, in my head, like that's a nerve-wracking process, because you're like, all right, I'm moving this stuff into this building, and like, to me, I'm like, okay, like, I know what it's like right now, but what's it going to be like in 3 months? What's it going to be like this? And like,
yeah,
the problem is like you get all these fluctuations, and like having indoor greenhouse space, like you'd be amazed on how much like the outdoor environment actually affects like what an indoor grow space is. And it's just it's always just an interesting aspect whenever we would grow indoors, and like when we still grow indoors, to be like, oh yeah, it's 23 degrees outside, like I have to like pretty much double what I'm trying to do indoors just to keep it maintained. So this like plant over here that wants conditions to just stay flatline year round because of where it grows, just all of a sudden plummets off, and just decides I'm no longer one for this world, So
understanding that some plants are just going to enter dormancy whether I want it or not. This plant given up for the next few months. It's dormant. Carly, give up.
Yeah,
that's been a process.
We have an Anthurium regal in the greenhouse that as soon as it drops down below like 65, 64 degrees, it goes dormant. And once it peaks back up above that, it usually sends out a massive leaf. You think I could keep a leaf on it all winter? Certainly not. And it's frustrating because it's a gorgeous plant. It's 7 or 8 years old at this point. I mean, it's a pretty decent sized rhizome.
Yeah.
But it's just so aggravating. You get like 2 or 3 gorgeous leaves because of how slow they grow, and then as soon as fall comes, it goes meh and just drops over.
Yeah,
but
I had I don't remember what it was. It's been so many years. Some variety of alocasia was the last time I've ever purchased an alocasia. Hey, I'm gonna give up now. I don't even sell them in my store. Just you all are banned.
So the only success I have had with alocasias, and unfortunately I can't always, like, it's not like I can tell like a regular gardener like who just has like some windowsill space and like grow space, like the best success I've had with them, at least for our greenhouse, is literally setting them up in a grow bed and growing them out that way. But it's something they just do not seem to like, that pot environment. And like, I don't know how some people do it, because they produce these magical plants that are just growing fantastically fine in this tiny little pot. And I put mine in an 8-inch pot, and 3 weeks later it looks like a wet piece of tissue in the rain, so it's a little depressing.
We're not we're not going to do that anymore.
Exactly. So, okay, so we know that alocasias are one that you don't really like. What's a plant that you really like to work with or just like to grow in general?
Phylos.
Phylos?
I philodendron so much. I have so many of them, and I mean, I don't think there's ever been one that I've grown for the store that I haven't kept one of myself. I love them because there's an endless amount of them. And humidity levels and care does change, within certain ones. But for the most part, like, I think they're real simple. When the pink princess was a huge thing a few years ago, I got my very overpriced plant that's now like $19.99 at big box stores. And
Gotta love tissue cultures. Terrible genetics, but
yeah,
mass produced.
yeah. But I got her, and it's been a few years, and I forget about my phylos pretty often, not because of like neglect, but I mean, just like with the store, that restoration process, it is nerve-wracking, and it's consumed a lot of my time. So I've invested the leftover energy I have in the store plants, which means my personal plants are like, why have you done this to us?
Yeah.
And she's been the most resilient, and she's just thrived and thrived. And yeah, I have several of those other, we were once $200, and Carly was like, oh, that's pretty. But I mean, my phylos have been, I mean, the easiest to deal with. And yeah, I love them. So I love growing them too, because if I am spread so thin, I know that once they reach not their largest potential, but enough maturity to go and be sold, I don't have to worry about them that much, and they're just okay.
Yeah.
But that's what
You know what?
80% of my store is made around, is different.
Nice. Yeah, that's what. First off, you'll have to excuse the gray tree frogs. They've discovered the fish tank in my greenhouse, and they're currently breeding in it. So,
that's okay.
I'll probably have that the rest of the night of them just screaming.
Feral
so,
dogs are running away, so they're also screaming. So
there you go. Excellent. Dogs and frogs all over the place.
You're welcome.
So, So if you want, we'll role play a little bit. I'll be like, I'm gonna walk into your store, and I've never grown a plant before in my entire life, but I want to buy a philodendron for you, but I have no idea how to care for it. I don't know any of that. So, like, I need help walking through that. So I'm gonna like walk in and be like, oh wow, yeah, this is a really cool philodendron. Like, I want this. How do I take care of it? Like, I want to take this home with me now.
I jumped straight into, okay, where are you going to put it? What kind of environment is it going to be in? Is this going to be in your office in a really dark room, or, in a window? Where is this plant going?
So I'm putting this plant in a window. I want this plant in my window.
Okay. In your home?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. In my home. I have, yes. Yep. Yeah.
You haven't cared for a plant before. Well, the good thing is phylos are relatively easy. I water mine every 10 to 14 days. I already have them pre-mixed in an aeroid mix. Side note, I just kind of factor that into their cost. So if a customer comes in, they're like, I could get this at Lowe's for $2 cheaper. I'm like, oh yeah, well, Lowe's came with heavy potted Miracle Grow strict soil, and I spent a lot of time mixing this. So, it's already in this aeroid soil. It does need bright and direct light, and its watering conditions are, very beginner friendly. But this particular one, if it is, requires a lot more humidity. So maybe let's get this one instead. I'm so sorry. I'm getting a call. Give me 2 seconds.
You're good. No worries. Dale, I'm not ignoring you. How are you, brother? I hope you're doing well down there. I saw you guys were getting a lot of rain.
I would, recommend this one instead. It's got similar foliage. You're hypothetically looking at this pink one, like, let's try this one instead. It's easier, and we could slowly acclimate you as well as the plant.
Okay. So I don't really like the pot this is in. I have my own pot that I just got at Ollie's. Where do I get this aeroid mix? Like, is this something that I have to have for this, or can I just go get like cactus and succulent mix for it?
So you can make your own with what we have available locally. Let's say at Lowe's, for example. If you're going to stick with things that are, strictly available easily to you like that, they have a particular brand, not my top recommendation, but they have a particular brand of orchid mix that includes charcoal and perlite. I would get that, and you can kind of add that to the mix I've already got in there as your plant grows. Or you could come back to me and I will get a pre-made mix for you, and you could purchase that from me. That way your plant stays in the same conditions as it grows. As far as your pot goes, my suggestion is to keep it in this one for a minimum of 2 weeks. And it's okay if you see that the plant loses, let's say a leaf, or it goes through a couple of days of looking a little droopier. I water every plant, before market most days, unless we have like a pop-up event, then it doesn't quite hit the every other week schedule. But I'll make sure that you know what day it was watered on last, and when you water it again, and stick to that schedule. So don't overwater it. If it looks droopy, it's just kind of adjusting to its climate. It's going to need to do that for a little bit, and then you could kind of transition it to this new pot. Now, I would always ask what size this pot is, because I don't want one of these 4-inch phylos going into a 8-inch pot and very happy. A lot of the plants like to stay a little snug until they absolutely need to be repotted. I try and keep things tighter than looser. We want snug over 8 inches of free space.
Okay. All right.
And it's a really heavy breakdown, but if you have any issues with that, here's my business card. It has my personal number attached. A lot of customers just text me because it's me running this business, not a team of 400. It's just me. And I want to get to know you, and I want to be available for questions. You can message the Facebook page, photos or questions. And then every single plant that I sell has a QR code, and you could, it links you to my Instagram, and every plant that I have, I snap a photo of and I upload its care instructions to Instagram.
Nice. Well, it sounds like I'm gonna get this plant and grow it out to be as big as I can get it.
Yes, that takes time. As we innate patience.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's my Monstera dubia, and I want it to fence straight now.
I hate it. It's another banned from my household.
When you're growing plants, do you prefer to grow them? Do you prefer the way they grow outdoors, or do you like it more indoors, where it's a little more controlled?
Honestly, I enjoy the ones indoors more, and so I'm very hopeful that the ones in the workshop adjust, and that'll be great. Because I feel like, especially with the restoration schedule, the ones that are inside are the ones that I'm seeing more of, so they're the ones that get that more attention. And I check my outdoor ones regularly. But if I'm working out of the workshop, 10 hours that day, those are the plants that I see a whole lot more of. And so I do prefer indoors. Now, they might not get as big as the ones that I would grow outdoors, but again, they're going to get a little more attention. So kind of there's a cost associated with everything. And, the cost of that little extra growth versus, all this continual upkeep and maybe even more growth because of that. Like I think the indoor ones have the upper hand there.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. The so you growing in, do you use like grow lights or anything, or is it all natural with like sunroom, or do you
So
just use like a supplement?
through the winter, I do supplement with grow lights.
Okay.
It's not staying sunny enough for the lighting in that indoor room to be enough. So I do use, I have some UV lamps, taller ones, not really the tiny
Mm.
ones, that we have in that room through the winter. But like I said, we are in a transitioning period, so I'm not quite sure how this winter is going to look with RU.
All right.
I
Well,
always bright, you know, indirect light with all the plants I have.
yep.
Over UV lamps, but through the winter, and like I said, I don't do much over the winter. You know, I'll do a few Christmas markets and I have a ton of fun there. I learned very harshly that my plants are not going to hold up at Wizard Fest at my little table. The amount of very sad plants that I rushed to my car was so sad.
Yeah, it's
Plants that people can buy at Wizard Fest instead.
nice. Yeah, it's very tough as a plant vendor, like to do. So like
Mhm.
we do like the perennial native plants and stuff, but we also do the tropicals, and like that's kind of helped us like balance it out a little bit. But like we always bring tropicals with us to the market, and
Mhm.
like it's fine and dandy when it's like May, June, and July. But if we're doing a market in like April, and like all of a sudden the weather decides to change, all those calathea, and the drama queens that they are, like go from happy to perky to just like straight wilted. I'm like, I swear to God, this plant is not dead. Like it is just absolutely
Very
miserable.
sad.
It is freezing cold. It wants you to take it home and warm it up. You
Mhm.
know, like it's always a tough thing.
And
But
see,
um,
so like where my business is still so new, especially last year's with its Christmas markets and holiday markets, it's kind of another one of those cost things. Just because it's not money doesn't mean it's not a cost. And until you've kind of grown, you know, a few years in and your customer base, it's a very like nerve-wracking place to be. Like if I don't
right.
markets through the winter, I'm gonna lose traction. I'm gonna lose that exposure. So, I mean, Sage and Root will have to continue it for a while. And some of those I really enjoy. We had a lot of fun holiday markets this past year. So I'll want to continue those. It's just I'm going to adjust because ever learning. You know, I'm not going to take 30 tropical plants to Wizard Fest and watch them slowly die in front of me.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's always
Mm,
tough. Always tough. That was a Wizard Fest last year. I think our
so
first year that we ever did Wizard Fest. It was gorgeous. It was perfect. Like it was great weather. The first day, the second day, it was absolutely frigid and miserable. And then like this year was hold on. All right. Well, the truck with the no muffler drove by finally. Apparently, he's late to get home for dinner. He usually drives by about 2 hours or earlier. Um, but like this year it was just rain all season or all weekend. And I remember setting up the tent for it. We got like half the tent set up, and we look, and there's like 100 gallons of water collected in the eave, and it was quite the event.
it was kind
But yeah, it was.
because Kristen's moms own Dragonfly Outdoor Cafe, so they go to Wizard Fest and they serve these things out of pumpkins, and they're so
Oh,
cool. But
yeah, I got so sick on fish tacos and pumpkins. Like that's all we ate because, with no pun intended, I rolled out of the greenhouse and it was like right there. So I was like, oh yeah,
I get,
yep, this is what I'd be eating.
I love it. But they were telling Kristen's been there, you know, to support them, and they've been there since it started. How great this is, and the staff and everyone was amazing. This is not them at all. They were amazing. I can't wait to be back. But just like, you know, it's so fun. It's so perfect. It's this. And then, you know, a few hours in, I'm being rained on and I'm freezing. I'm like, yes, it's amazing. I love this.
Yeah, unfortunately, like the weather doesn't always play with the experience. You know, it's always that tough thing. But like it's uh it's I guess it's November for you. You know, it's just that iffy time of year, and if it wants to be sunny, it'll be sunny. But unfortunately, most of the time, I think Mother Nature's even sad that it's going to be winter, so it just rains all the time.
Yes.
So. But with growing a lot of plants indoors, like it's not like with like my tomatoes and stuff like that, where I can plant nasturtiums and stuff to bring in beneficial insects. And like being growing indoors, there's not really a lot of natural predators for pests to survive and stuff. So I'm trying to, I want to get my head wrapped around like how do you take care of like some of the pests that like you run into? Like, so what are the common pests and how that you see and what you would do to take care of them?
So a huge perk to growing indoors is I really haven't ran into as many pests as I would with the outdoor ones. And the outdoor ones, we've come into a few things, and luckily they've been controlled with neem oil. But the indoor ones, I haven't had to battle as much. Now I've had customers, because I do a little plant hospital. They'll bring me their sick plants, and I'll kind of, I will assess them for free, and then I'll kind of just charge them the cost of supplies, because it's not something I'm trying to profit off of. It's kind of an educational thing, and it's a kind of fun experiment, if that makes sense. I step outside of the business and get to just play with the plant, but not for the business.
Right.
But and then I leave them. They get discharged bag, like a water.
I like that. That's awesome.
But so I've had a few customers bring in different pests, spider mites, aphids, but mealybugs are the ones that seem to be the most common, at least with our client base. So with pests like that, and gnats, so many gnats people have issues with. So with gnats, which is something I've tried to communicate to customers, because a lot of people have heard about neem oil and that's their go-to. But with gnats, I will change out the potting soil to chunkier soil, because a lot of times it's just that thick, moisture retending soil. But I also do a hydrogen peroxide mix, and I clean its root system really well. And if it is in that chunky mix and it's still getting stuff in, I'll just kind of douse it, and that kills them every time. It will.
Yep.
With mealybugs, if I could do a neem oil wipe down, I will, but it often ends up with the peroxide as well. You have to get every single bit of those off, or they're going to come back. And that's not always going to be achievable. Sometimes it's just too far gone, and that sucks, and it's sad. But if you let it go for so long, it's not savable. But a lot of things, or a lot of not quite pests that people wouldn't right away think of is plants get sick too. There are viruses that affect, especially these tropical plants. And that could be a little tricky to correct, and a lot of nutrient deficiencies that go along with that. Like plants need calcium, plants need a magnesium, like those fertilizers that people see in the store, they're not just there for a reason. They have, a version of the mix, but researching your plant and knowing exactly what kind of nutrients it needs to thrive on. Like I reference phylos a lot because that's what I sell most of. But they do require, calcium, magnesium. They need a potassium. So that kind of corrects those nutrient deficiencies. As a preventative, and this is my top recommendation to everyone, because we do want to go as natural as we can. That peroxide mix is our how we correct major infestations. But as a preventative, I love to recommend peppermint oil. Peppermint is one of those natural insect repellents, and lemon balm. Like, these are things that you could do. So a lot of the plants, when people get them, smell a little like minty, and it's because I use peppermint oil as a preventative. And lavender, that's a great one too.
Nice, awesome. That's really cool. That's it's really neat to be able to, like, and that's kind of where we were going all the way back from where we first started. This is like, you you kind of you subliminally attract who you want to your businesses. And like some of like we have customers that will grab leaves and smell them and stuff like that. And like you know what they're either like smelling for like a harsher chemical smell, or like in your case they're smelling for like the peppermint and things of that nature. So like you're setting up a good foundation like that of saying like, hey, we're not going, even though like I could pick up like a good strong systematic pesticide, and I can be like, okay, well, I'm going to spray this on this doctored plant and just give it back to someone. You're actually going through and taking the time and learning more like natural remedies and more like safer means of saying, here, that's, you can have this back.
Yes,
so,
and preventative are so important. Like they really truly are. Sorry, a lot of background noise.
You're good. You're good. I'm trying to see, maybe, I think a leaf moved on me, and now, oh, there goes my connection. All right. But yeah, that's really interesting. You know, it's a great, the whole plant hospital thing's fantastic. Like that's really cool. It's good to have a place where new houseplant growers can come and be like, yeah, don't worry, hey, I'll put the thermometer in the soil and we'll take care of the plants. But yeah, we're all right. So it's almost 8 o'clock. We're gonna wrap it up here. I'm gonna try to be on time. So what we're gonna do, I've got a few questions for you at the end, and hopefully this is gonna be kind of a thing that I ask. I end up asking everyone, but so your first question is going to be, what is your favorite house plant or native plant? Or you can say, I have a favorite house plant and I have a favorite native. Either or, it doesn't matter.
Favorite houseplant is always going to be the Monstera delicioso.
Yeah.
Don't always enunciate it correctly, but I've had mine for years. It's gorgeous. It takes up half my living room. My husband absolutely loves that.
Nice. That's awesome. So it's a beautiful plant. That's what all of us need to get together one day when it's actually blooming, and let's make some bread out of its fruit whenever we can.
Yeah.
Like we'll have to learn a little bit, but it'll be exciting.
Yes.
So like where, and this is like a two-parter, and you can answer it in general. So, but like, where can people go to learn more about like you and your business, and also if there's any like events or anything going on in the upcoming future or whatever, give them a shout out. Like this is your time.
So Facebook is the best way to keep up with events right now, because Appalachian Folkology and Sage and Root are making a collaborative website. So both of ours are kind of down right now, so we could create that one. So Facebook is where to keep up with events, and the events that we host, you'll always find on our Facebook and Aridnis Brewing's Facebook, because we do like to host some special events there. So right now, for the time being, Facebook is the go-to source of information until that website has relaunched.
Okay. All right. And do you have any upcoming events that maybe people can come out and visit you at, or? Not
currently planned special events at the brewery, but we are in market season, so we will be at the AKY Market on the Square in Ashland every other weekend. So Saturday is our next one, and then that calendar of events is also on our Facebook. But for the time being, every other weekend we will be set up at Broadway Square in Ashland.
That's really cool. It's awesome. Now, can I go into the brewery and purchase a plant while having a beer?
You can. Or, we have several shelves there, so you could have a drink. Try. Justin actually released a new beer today. Purchased a plant right off the shelves.
There you go.
Yeah.
That sounds like an awesome time. Yeah. Nothing like beer and plants together. That's a fantastic time. Well, it's I want to appreciate you taking the time out of your night, Carly. We're gonna I won't hold you too much longer. Thank you for joining me. I think this is like Terra Talk number 4. So we'll see how it goes.
Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you. Take
Bye.
care.